Carthage, 146 BCE, once a proud and prosperous city, turned into ashes after an invasion at the hands of the Roman Republic. But how did the grand land of Carthage fall so suddenly to these invaders from the north? It all started 600 years prior, in 753 BC. According to legend, Rome was founded by the first ruler. His name was Romulus.
Romulus was a curious character from ancient Roman history. According to legend, he was nursed by the Capetine wolf and founded ancient Rome with his brother. Now, Rome was originally ruled by 7 kings who had to pay tribute to the Etruscans, but in 500 BC they rebelled and formed the Roman Republic.
With Rome's newfound freedom, it began to conquer and expand. This led to direct conflict with the Grand Carthaginian Empire in the 3 Punic Wars. The 3 Punic Wars were devastating. Carthage relied heavily on mercenary forces and Numidian natives. Rome had a professional and well-trained army. In the First War, Rome conquered Sicily and demanded money from Carthage. In the Second War, Hannibal famously crossed the Alps and nearly destroyed Rome, but an African kingdom invaded and destroyed the Carthaginian Empire, turning it into a city-state. The Third War was one massive siege, as Rome, in the end, salted the earth, making the land an uninhabitable barren wasteland.
Between the fall of Carthage and the rise of the early Roman Republic, history truly begins to take shape. Most of these events transpire in 109 BC, in the life of Spartacus.
Spartacus started life as a slave training to be a gladiator.
Get up and fight, you fat boy! You ain't doing nothing, boy! And then you open your chest. Oh!
Angry with the oppression he was facing, he and his friend Crixus rebelled against the Roman aristocracy.
Hey! What is this?
No!
Slaughtering local Roman guards, Spartacus and Crixus went door to door, murdering the oppressive aristocrats and rich, wealthy bureaucrats. He liberated the slaves to join his army.
Spartacus was terrorizing southern Italy. Rome needed a hero. General Pompey would rise to the occasion to defeat this cruel enforcer.
Now here's where the Spartacus revolt begins to fall apart. As Spartacus and Crixus begin to fight over how to deal with their Roman prisoners. Crixus wants to fight them in a gladiatorial ring, just like they were forced to, but Spartacus is against this. In the end, they split.
Crixus resorts to gladiatorial fight to get revenge on his Roman enemies. Spartacus does not agree with this maneuver.
Crixus leads some of Spartacus's men north to fight the incoming Pompey, but he is crushed and is crucified by Pompey. Now, the rest of Spartacus's men retreat to southern Italy, where they pay Sicilian pirates to hopefully ferry their way across the Mediterranean and escape Pompey's army. But as they arrive, the pirates are nowhere to be seen, and this is terrible for Spartacus's army. He is now trapped in southern Italy and forced to fight Pompey's armies head-on.
The infamous speech of Spartacus is nigh. Trapped in southern Italy, he raised his blade and slaughters his horse in front of his men, declaring, "If I win this battle, I shall have 1,000 horses. If I lose, I shall be dead and not need one."
Now Well, Spartacus' revolt is very important to early Roman history. It is the rise of General Pompey, and the idea of a slave revolt was shocking to the entirety of the Roman Empire. They were not expecting something of this scale to happen, and it really threw into sharp relief the class system. After Pompey's victory, he showed the true cruelty and power of the Roman Empire. On the road back to Rome, every 15 feet, he crucified another one of Spartacus's men, making a 40,000-man line on the way back to Rome. This truly showed their unending power and what happens to those who go against Rome's will.
The most famous and influential man from the Roman Republic was Julius Caesar.
Find anything?
Here, Caesar forges an alliance known as the Triumvirate with the richest man in Rome, Crassus, and the most prestigious man named Pompey. Caesar uses this alliance to gather senatorial support and govern Gaul.
Now, with Caesar's newfound position in Gaul, he managed to fabricate a barbarian threat to the north and invade, and in the end comes to conquer the entirety of what is modern-day France. Using this, he's now gathered the loyalty of the entire Roman army. Shortly after Caesar's amazing conquest, the Triumvirate begins to fall apart. His rich ally Crassus goes to campaign in Turkey, where he is murdered by the Turks after a failed battle. Later, Pompey, his other most prestigious ally, is married to Julius's daughter, Julia. In labor, she dies, driving Pompey mad, and he betrays Julius Caesar and wishes to defeat him.
The Senate, fearing Julius's power, demands he relents and give up his command. But he refuses and heads to Rome to fight the Senate. Pompey flees to Greece. Caesar pursues him and they face off. But Pompey flees to Egypt. As Pompey hides in Egypt, he is caught by dangerous marauders and cold-bloodedly murdered.
But alas, Julius Caesar's rule would not last for very long. A mere 2 years into his rule, he is stabbed by his own apprentice and 16 others. Marcus Brutus and the others brutally murder him. I believe we have a tape of that now.
The assassins had hoped to restore the Republic, but one man, Augustus Caesar, would consolidate the empire.
Nachgrund Toten Wiener Schnitzel Third Reich, Kino der Toten, knock. Und zwei nach. Nachgrund Toten Wiener Schnitzel, der findet ihn mein besten Freunde. Ich in der Regel mit ihnen Usub treiben.
After Augustus Caesar's tragic yet peaceful death, there was about 200 years of relative peace in the Roman Empire. Until the rise of Caligula.
Likewise, Caligula was a crazy emperor, and he was afraid that his wife would give birth to a child who would not be usurp him, and determined that the factors would otherwise destroy him and his family.
Wait, what? The heck? How would you like to be the new emperor?
I would like that.
Now, the new Emperor Claudius was a curious character. At a young age, he had a stutter, and he wasn't trained as a politician like most young noble boys. He was in fact disregarded by his family, and the Praetorian Guard, those who assassinated Caligula, thought they could easily control them, but they would soon realize they were wronged.
Weak and feeble Claudius must now prove his mettle to the rest of the world. He sets his eyes on England, a land not even Julius Caesar could have conquered.
Now the curious thing is, Claudius never actually did much in England. He had his generals conquer most of the territory and the Celts that lived there. Claudius did head there once, but in fact he only spent about 2 months in actual England. He never did much conquering. It was more of a prestige act. This freedom from the control of the Praetorian Guard and made him a true emperor, even though he really actually didn't do much.
Emperor Domitian rises to power once his brother dies under suspicious circumstances. Domitian is unfit to rule and often resorts to assassinations to hold his position in office.
This new emperor, Domitian, the only reason he really remains in power is because he gives a massive amount of riches and power to the army. The military was typically powerful in Rome, but it was especially so during his rule. To help maintain his rule and to supply his greed and the riches that he desired, he would have his soldiers rob and beat up rich people on the streets to gain their riches.
Now, during the time of Domitian's rule, there is a violent revolt of barbarians in the area of Dacia. This massive barbarian army threatens the empire and he invades. But instead of, like a true honorable Roman, completely defeating the empire, he instead makes a peace deal with them, giving them thousands of what we would call dollars worth in gold, and even sending them some weapons and other warlike materials. This leads to a large amount of hate towards this new empire.
Domitian is assassinated after his embarrassing defeat in what is now modern-day Romania. His own wife plots to destroy him with a manservant who cleverly disguises his knife inside a fake bandage on his arm.
Now Trajan comes in at a curious point in history. The empire is at its height, someplace it's never been in before. It is consolidated, the borders are well defended, and the empire is wealthy.
Trajan's rise comes with his military service. He works his way up to general status with ease.
After this, Trajan rises to imperial power. He tries to exact revenge on the Romanians who were known as the Dacians at the time. But as he finally destroys them and he takes their capital, they all choose suicide through poison instead of fighting to the death.
Now, as Trajan defeats the Romanians, he becomes a conqueror, and in his eyes he sees himself as the new Alexander the Great. He spreads across the Middle East conquering, hoping to make it all the way to India, but he is unsuccessful. He overstretches the empire. The infrastructure is shot and the empire becomes nearly bankrupt, and in the end he will die of old age while campaigning in Mesopotamia. The empire would never grow larger than it would be under Emperor Trajan.
Marcus Aurelius was one of the greatest Roman emperors ever. He nearly conquered all of Germany. If it was not for his pathetic and spoiled son, he would have succeeded in his conquest.
Hello, today I brought you to this German forest. The very forest that Marcus Aurelius won a climatic battle against the German tribes. This very place, right here, this very bush, Marcus Aurelius himself slew the German general. He was a warlord, a powerful man, nearly 6'7", weighing 300 pounds. It was an intense battle indeed. It was said that the German tribes, they used shamans, or better known as druids, to make sacrifices to the pagan gods, empowering the warriors, giving them power to fight. What the rubbish is this? These may be the very descendants of Germanic priests, the ones that offered to the pagan gods to help their men win battles. Hello, I'm Professor Fields from Oxford University. I have a PhD in Marcus Aurelius, the very man that came to this very forest to kill your very own great-great-great-grandfathers more than 1,000 years ago. How more than 2,000 years ago? Now, are you the... Well, you bloody look like the Google images of the Germanic priests. The ones that are mysterious and mystic, always wandering. Seems like they're about to kill you in any second.
This is
It seems
mysterious
sleepy.
right here.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Mysterious. Are these some kind of sacrificial wands? Part of a ritual?
You want one, you wizard?
I'm not a wizard. You men are the wizards. You know,
Here, take a shot. Take a shot.
I mean, you know that your very great-great-great-grandfathers, that you are now descendants of, lived in these very forests. These Germanic pagan tribes. The Romans would march through this very trail. And as the Germans flung themselves at them, they would effectively defend them off with their spears and shields, their well-trained army. They were much superior than the barbaric Germans that you're now descended of. Now, what is your name?
Ladarius.
Strong German name. So, could you perform a ritual for me right now?
Yeah.
Marcus will do it for you.
Here's what you do. You hold your fingers up like this. Hold it like this. And then you
Blow it.
I feel the pagan gods. They're coming to me. I feel them.
Doctor, I think we need to cut this wood.
This is first-hand.
This is
First-hand resources.
You want one?
Just like Professor
no,
Ressler asked. First-hand resources.
this isn't going well.
I'll be needing going back to Oxford now. Do you know the way out?
As we fast forward a few short years to the time of Constantine, we suddenly see an empire in distress. It has been divided into 4 sections. The far western empire controlling Gaul and Britain, the sort of middle empire controlling Italy and some of the German territories, the far eastern empire, which is at the time is the most powerful empire, and then the empire that controls the Iberian Peninsula and Africa. They all are one Rome, but they are 4 separate empires, emperors ruling them. They truly are showing the signs of Rome beginning to fall apart.
Constantine is raised in a violent era. He is the son of the Western Emperor, but is raised by the Eastern Emperor, a common practice in Rome.
The Eastern Roman Emperor at the time was persecuting Christians. He was making people pay tribute to pagan gods, and those, including Christians, that didn't do this were executed. Constantine at the time did not approve of this.
During this time, the Eastern Roman Emperor dies, and Constantine, finding himself written out of the will, returns to the west, where his father is.
Sonny, I need you to know that when I die, all these lands that I own, as far as you can see, will not be yours. They'll be
You're not getting any land.
He then campaigns in Britain, and his father does die of old age, as he's an old man, shortly after they are reunited. Then a usurper of sorts comes to power in Italy. This definitely does anger the other 3 emperors at the time, and Constantine invades. This is when his conversion to Christianity becomes clear, as right before the battle, he supposedly looks up to the sky, praying to the gods for an answer, for he is heavily outnumbered by his enemy, and in the eye he supposedly sees a cross made of sunlight. He then orders his soldiers to write this cross on their shields, and they march into battle and are victorious against their enemy. This consolidates Constantine's belief in the Christian faith.
After his initial conquest of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantine changes the once capital of Byzantium to Constantinople, naming it after himself. Along with this, he makes it the Eastern Orthodox capital of the world.
Constantine came to rule the whole Western Empire, and a man by the name of Maxentius, he ruled the Eastern Empire. They soon clash due to differences in how they believe the empire should be ruled, and Constantine brings the whole empire under his rule once he defeats Maxentius.
Constantine ruled his empire in relative peace for the rest of his days. He consolidated the power of the Christian Church by making it the official state religion, and of course by the founding of Constantinople, he progressed Christianity forward a great amount. In the end, he would only have himself baptized at the age of 90. This, in a way, was due to the fact that he could wipe all his sins clean of his past rule, and for the final few years of his life, he lived as a mere priest or a friar in his great Roman capital.
This is how Rome would have fallen.